Guardians were off on Thursday, and the way they're playing, maybe you don't necessarily want a day off, but they had one anyway. The day off is a good time to sit back and think and take stock in things. So today we're going to take stock in some of the minor leaguers, talk about what possible trade assets the Guardians could or could not have in the minor leagues. And another former Cleveland team got off to a similar start a couple years ago. Hasn't been that long, even though it has been a little bit. We'll see if that team compares to this team or if this team has a little more staying power. Coming up on today is Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, with new customers, get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. I feel like after someone commented, like I need to pull up some kind of a prop out every day. Here we go. I 3D printed this the other day. It's a fun little prop I can show off. It's something I made it work.
I don't have anything.
But we had a positive comment about my props, so I thought maybe here we go. That's a fun one. Random 3D print. I don't have a good. I need to get like a shelf or something so I can have a few more designs and fun things.
All my stuff is on the other side of my basement now, so less cool backgrounds. Oh well.
But just having some fun with it as we always do.
What'd you do on your off day? What did you do, Jeff?
It was, for the first time all week, I had a planning period. I didn't have to.
Did you watch some baseball during that period?
I did not. I needed to catch up on the work I didn't get done the rest of the week when I was dealing with things. So it was a good catch up day for me because we have like 9 days of school left. Tomorrow's my daughter's last day of kindergarten, so I'm like, oh my goodness, kindergarten, it's already over. But yeah, I'm having those moments as a parent. But it's just end of the school year. I got to write a bunch of progress reports. That's the last thing between me and freedom. So
I watched more baseball. I worked too, but I watched more baseball in the background. I watched Kentucky and Arkansas today. I did watch a little bit of Akron earlier this evening before we started recording this. Had a few other college games on throughout the day. It's a good time of year to watch college baseball. It's only going to get more fun.
Can I make one comment?
Yes.
One of our everydayers, Mike Fingerbottom, jumped in with a bunch of comments, and I got to say, come on, dude. He talked about how Fry could play every position, but the one thing we haven't seen him do is pitch. How did he forget the David Fry pitching experience from a year ago?
I was at that game, and let me tell you, that was an experience. That was the game Lucas Giolito got taken to the woodshed by the Twins, and Fry came in. That was not fun. One of your friends actually was at that game, Jeff. I was in the bleachers. Yes. Yeah, he came over and he was like, "Can I get a picture with you?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure."
No, it was No, he texted me. I'm like, "Oh, Justin's there." He goes, "Do you think he'd mind if I met him?" It's another everydayer, Tom Willie, who's in our comments. Good dude. But he was very excited to meet you. So I mean, I've never had that moment. I look forward to the day when someone's like, "Are you Jeff Ellis?" Picture. It's kind of weird. Like, I know people love this show, and we get so many kind comments about it. But it's weird to think of myself as like the equivalent of someone else's like favorite, or I can't even think of my like favorite YouTube celebrity, like your top 10 YouTube personality. There we go. That's about as much as my.
Yikes! I definitely don't consider myself a personality.
I mean, our channel makes us YouTube personalities, like it or not. But I can't say I'm anyone's favorite. Yes. I'm saying maybe I crack like 2 top 10s.
I'm not even my wife's favorite YouTuber, so that's fine.
But yeah, I mean, the fun thing with the off day, you and I had some good discussions. We were like, there was a point where you're like, let's save this for the show. We spent almost an hour before every show discussing the show. We could do a whole podcast just with our prep. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's a subset who would listen to just us talking and lining things up. But yeah,
wouldn't always be pretty.
It wouldn't. This comparison is not a fun one, and I don't believe in it at all. But it's worth having.
Thought experiment.
It's a thought experiment. But I do want to start off with sometimes we get accused of negativity. Like, I don't think this team. That other team, like, listen, I listened to every single game that year. I was living in New York City. I didn't have cable, and I couldn't afford MLB TV, so I did. I listened to Hamilton and Hegan, and it was fantastic. And I listened to every single game. And I was so excited, but there was so much smoke and mirrors that even I kind of knew that year it was not going to sustain.
Well, let's take a look at
the great Manny Acta and manager.
Yeah. Let's take a look at some of the guys in that team here. And just, I mean, I know player to player comparison isn't always the best way to do it, but ironically enough, so the Guardians on May 23rd are 16 games above 500. That is their high point. Was I right on that? So that's 16? No. They're 33 and 17. They're 33 and 17. So they're 16 games above 500. That's their high water mark this year. The 2011 Cleveland Indians were 30 and 15 after 45 games, also on May 23rd. That was their high water mark of the year. They never got past that. It didn't take long for that to fall apart because they lost the next 4 games after that. And then they lost 6 of 8 after that or something. It was pretty ugly after that. After 45 game mark at 35, 30 and 15, I was like, yep, playoffs. This is the year. It's a great year. I believed it, but let's take a look at it. Let's just go.
This is also the pre or Juan Uribe with people forget about Orlando Cabrera and Asdrubal Cabrera, which is Uribe and Jose before Uribe and Jose. But yeah, it was an interesting time.
Yeah, let's just go and let me ask you who you're taking on, who you would take for a single season comparison to the two teams. Let's start at catcher. Are you taking 2011 catcher?
Yes.
Carlos Santana?
Yes.
Over 2024 Bo Naylor?
Yes.
More offense than defense. Because Bo weirdly enough, is giving you more defense than offense right now.
He is, but
not something I'd say.
Santana had an OPS over 800. That was a really good year. He had almost 30 home runs. He had a ton of doubles. Like, this team could use a little more slug, and that was, I feel like, one of his best slugging seasons. That was a really good year. I would take, and I'm always taking Los. Like, Los is one of my favorite players of the last 20 years. Like, Bo could be fantastic, but I love Los, and that also probably influences it. Bo's defense is the better. Like, there's no doubt about that. But I would rather have
Santana was
Carlos
not
Santana
doing much defensively. We could probably skip Matt Laporta, right? I mean, that was a terrible year. His first half though was pretty good. Do you know that his first half that year was? I'm sorry, through May. So that was through May. We're looking at through May 23rd, just May 23rd, because that's the date we're at. Matt Laporta through May 23rd, 2011, was hitting 256, 338, 465. Looked like he was finally going to become that first baseman that Cleveland traded for. And obviously the rest of the year was just dog water, but I don't think we need to spend much more time.
I think we don't have to focus on him, but I think there is talking about Laporta brings up an interesting point, because this is where these teams are alike, which is was a youthful transition, because this is Matt Laporta's season. This is Lonnie Chisenhall and Jason Kipnis' debut years as well. I want to say this was a good minor leagues. Santana hadn't been up all that long. He's only 20, 24, 25.
He was coming off that knee injury the year before.
Yeah. Asdrubal Cabrera was also pretty young. Like, this was a team that was not supposed to, like, the start was surprising because a lot of the young guys in the minors, I mean, Travis Buck, I think, started the year with the team. Like, I think he was like one of those guys that were trying out to see if they could, they were trying to see if they could find something there. The great Cord Phelps debuted that year. One of my biggest swings and misses ever in prospect evaluation. But there was a lot of this is where these teams are very similar. Was they were both teams where there was young hitters.
Oddly enough, we were talking about Carlos Santana, and he was off to a slow start that year. He ended up having a great season, but Santana through May 23rd of that year was hitting 207, 343, 372. Which was good for a 103 WRC plus. So miles better than Bo Naylor offensively right now, because he had the walks and the lack of strikeouts to make up for it. But just interesting. He's off to a slow start, but just shows you where Bo Naylor's at. Okay, second base, Orlando Cabrera or Andres Jimenez. This is an interesting one. Orlando Cabrera did not have a very good year for them. He was awful. He was awful.
Awful.
Yeah. I think this
is
he
was washed.
Right?
He was 36 years. He was late 30s. He was washed. He was done. This is easy. The best thing he did was convince Asdrubal Cabrera that he could hit home runs.
Yeah. Speaking of shortstops, I think the Rocchio thing is rough right now. That was a good season for Asdrubal. He was still playing a good shortstop at that point.
This is another
he
easy.
Came into his own.
Yeah, it's.
I don't.
And he's like the end of the same age.
Ever turning into this.
I guess maybe Rocchio's pretty young. How old is Rocchio?
I think Rocchio's 24, and Asdrubal was 25 that year.
Yeah, Rocchio's
23. Yeah,
but still, it's not a huge age gap. And Asdrubal was already because he debuted at age 21. Remember, he went from A-ball to the majors.
20. He was age 20.
Yeah, he
came up in September of that 07 team because Josh Barfield wasn't cutting it. Yeah, and he was a contact hitter with good defense and speed. And then this year in 2011, he had over 50 extra base hits that year. 32 doubles, 25 home runs, stole 17 bases.
He went from high A to triple A. That's what it was. He skipped double A, which was really weird.
Yeah, the trade from the Mariners. Yeah, so obvious one. I don't know if Rocchio is ever going to become what Cabrera did. I don't think Rocchio is ever going to have 25 home run power, but you would think that if he's ever going to have the Asdrubal Cabrera power spike, that Jose Ramirez would be the one to help him, right? Because he's not as old as Orlando Cabrera or Jose or Juan Uribe, but he's experienced enough to sit there and say hey, but he needs to get his footing first before he can start. Because at that point, Asdrubal Cabrera was hitting pretty well.
Solid regular.
He wasn't hitting for power. Rocchio's not hitting anything right now. So
he was a solid regular.
More to come on that 2011 and 20.
I'm taking Jack Hanahan
over Jose Ramirez. All right, that's the end of the show. Jeff is clearly all hopped up on fizzy water over there, so we can no longer continue on that.
2 hands.
We'll get more into these comparisons. We'll get more into what Guardians prospects have some trade value, we think, which ones don't. Kind of a rough year in the system. So we'll get into that. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about college tournaments if time allows, and maybe the Royals too. They're doing some interesting things that we might have to consider. So all that coming up on the rest of Friday's Locked On Guardians. Look, any time of year, spring is here, and we know inflation is inflation. Wherever you're going to buy stuff at this point, you really want to save some money. It's super important to go out there and get cash back on anything you're buying, whether that's retail, groceries, toys for a birthday. It's summer. You want to go out and buy beach stuff or summer stuff. Start using Ibotta. It's a free app that gives you cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items. Grocery, beauty supply stores. Make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year, and that could cover a whole shopping trip, a flight maybe. I don't know about a flight anymore, but close. Or, some nice night out on the town. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 for just trying Ibotta for using the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register for your account. So just go to the App Store, Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back, and use our code LOCKEDONMLB to get $5 right there before you start even purchasing anything. So that's IBOTTA in the Google Play Store or the Google App Store, or the Play App Store, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. Get supplies from the site that's made for skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order any of your plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. They have an easy-to-use website that is packed with a lot of resources, the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop their complete inventory, over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, and get the order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, get an expert support, an industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business, and you can talk to a real person every time. How important is that to actually get a hold of somebody? Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining supplyhouse.com's free trade master program. Every trade master gets access to their own dedicated phone line. They get free shipping, discounts in every order, all cool perks that can really save you some money in the long run. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. Hey, Guardians are finally back in action on Friday. You can catch all the action on your SiriusXM app. Just search Guardians. Good time to do it, 9:30 Eastern. I'm looking forward to a West Coast game on the weekend. The weeknight games on the West Coast are brutal for us, brutal for me. When I was in college, I lived for those, but not anymore.
In high school as well. That was always kind of fun when it was UAB.
I was always a night owl, but I just during the week anymore. We're adults now. It's not fun. All right, so we're skipping third base. Here's a fun one.
Jack Hanahan, elite defender.
The thing I remember most about Jack Hanahan was getting into a fight with Jonathan Sanchez because he hit Sin-Soo Choo, I think is what happened. I think that was the year Choo broke his hand because of the Royals pitcher hit his hand. I think that's what it was. Michael Brantley in left field, Stephen Kwan. I mean, 24-year-old Michael Brantley hadn't really broken out yet.
No, I take Kwan at that point. Like that was pre-breakout. That was when they got him to that deal that he should have never signed, basically.
No, I'm taking. So you have Grady Sizemore, who, by the way, I know we want to say Sizemore was broken. Well, he was, but in the first half, in the month of May, we're talking until May 23rd. Again, Grady Sizemore had a 167 WRC plus through May 23rd that year. So he was not broken yet, but he was broken later in the year. Are you still taking that? I'm still taking that version over any center fielder Cleveland's thrown out this year. Because
I mean, I am as well. There's some power potential. He still played a good defensive center field, I want to say, at that time. It was just the bat and the health were not there. Yeah.
Travis Hafner at that point, I mean, he was also a shell of himself. He couldn't stay healthy. The numbers were good, a 128 OPS plus that year, but obviously he was very, very injured. And you had guys like Choo and Travis Buck filling in, Austin Kearns. And you look at the Guardians outfield now, Austin Kearns is probably comparable to Ramon Laureano, but he's gone finally.
I think Kearns was better than Laureano, at least with the bat there. And then Kearns also
had a 78 WRC plus that year.
So
I don't know.
Was that the year they flipped him? He was good enough.
No, that was the year before he came back. That was also the Zach McAllister trade. So
it's netted him Zach McAllister. It's kind of an interesting.
You had Shelly Duncan on that team. You had Ezekiel Carrera for a minute, like Travis Buck. None of those guys were any good, and the Guardians are still searching for the right outfield mix. And right now, you've got Kwan, like you said, you take Kwan over Brantley, and you got the difference. The difference in the outfield to me is this: like you're still trying to figure out who Will Brennan is, right? He's been a little streaky this year. You're still, I don't know, maybe Estevan Florial is like, I don't know. He's not really Shelly Duncan because, Shelly Duncan was 31. Travis Buck was 27. Maybe he's Travis Buck because Travis Buck was a top prospect at one point, I think. So maybe Florial's Travis Buck. Laporta and Manzardo. I'm not going to say Manzardo's Laporta, but similar ages in terms of trying to figure things out. We're still trying to figure out Rodriguez. And there's really nobody on that team that you can really compare him to because, like, you had Trevor Crowe, he was 27 and he was a nobody at that point. So, I still believe in this outfield more, even though at the end of the day, you still don't have a lot of answers at this point. And that team certainly didn't have a David Fry. Like, you look at the guys that came off the bench that year. Jason Kipnis was one of the top prospects. So was Lonnie Chisenhall.
And then Kipnis got hurt that year. Like, he debuted.
Yeah, that's right.
Fantastically hot, and then got hurt. Jason Donald was. He was a relatively big part of the Lee deal. I was pretty excited for him.
And he actually had a good year that year. He played 139 games. He had a 116 OPS plus that year. I would not compare David Fry and Jason Donald, so I would take David Fry. And then the pitching here is where I think is the most comparable. This is where I'm most concerned. Both those rotations have Carlos Carrasco, which is very ironic. A 24-year-old Carrasco who had not found his footing yet. But you got Justin Masterson, who was an every other year guy at that point, and that was a good year for him. Didn't strike a lot of guys out. That's Tristan McKenzie-ish, right? Masterson and McKenzie every other year. I know Masterson was a little healthier. I don't know. I see some comparisons there. The artist formerly known as Foster Carmona was an abysmal pitcher that year. I don't know. It's not quite Logan Allen because Logan Allen's not been great this year, but hopefully that's not Josh Tomlin, a control guy, probably Ben Lively, right? You probably have your Ben Lively and Josh Tomlin, right? He had a 4.25 ERA and 165 innings that year. Like, that's probably your Ben Lively. Hopefully the Guardians can get 165 innings out of Ben Lively at a 4.25 ERA. I would love that.
That's the year they went out and traded for Ubaldo too.
He was awful,
brutal.
So I don't know if I really want to go down that route again. this team didn't really have a Tanner Bybee. Like, I think Bybee has more potential than Justin Masterson. That's why I said I think McKenzie's more comparable to Masterson. I think that's the one thing that the 11 rotation didn't have was a Tanner Bybee. My only concern is I thought that was the year they had Derek Lowe. It must have been 2010. I guess I was wrong on what year they had Derek Lowe. You had Alex White come up and get hurt. No, they traded him. That's right. So Alex White came up.
This must have been the year they traded Zach McAllister pitched for this team. So this must have been
they got Kearns back. Corey Kluber also made his debut that year, just FYI. So that's fun. As messed up as this rotation has been this year, hopefully Gavin Williams comes back healthy and sometime in June. As shaky as this rotation has been this year, I will take this rotation over that one because, Foster Carmona was done at that point. Josh Tomlin was who he was, and that was solid. I think I would take the 2011 version of Carrasco over this version. I know people are saying in the comments, well, he's pitched fine, his ERA's low, but he's been a little dicey. I don't know. I like the upside of Bybee. McKenzie scares me at times. When Gavin comes back, it's a lot better. I just don't see anybody young and upcoming in that rotation. Like you had Carrasco as a young up and comer in that rotation. Mitch Talbot was a disaster. That was an awful trade. And hopefully they go out and trade for a pitcher better than Ubaldo was. So definitely taking this rotation.
At the time, Ubaldo wasn't all. It was a big swing. The funny thing is just, of course, the fact that like it didn't work out for anyone.
Sure didn't. The real interesting thing to compare is I think this rotation is better than 2011. The bullpen. Chris Perez was definitely not Emmanuel Clase. Joe Smith was fantastic. Joe Smith might have been better than Nick Sandlin. Nick Sandlin's been great this year, but I think Joe Smith was a little more reliable. I'm definitely taking. I loved Rafi Perez in those years, but I'm definitely taking Heron or Henches because Rafi Perez never missed any bats. Tony Sipp was solid. Pastano, I don't know. Is Hunter Gaddis, Scott Barlow, Cade Smith, or Vinny Pastano? Like, do you want Pastano over any of those guys, or do you want?
This is before Pastano imploded, right? This is still like
correct.
People forget how good
Next year was
Pastano
the year
was.
Pastano, yeah.
Like this was the
13. I'm sorry, 13 or 14.
He was really good at that time. But that's the other thing that's fun to compare. Like these are excellent bullpens. Like
they are. That was a good bullpen. I like this bullpen a little better. You got some younger guys, some harder throwers. Like Chris Perez was 25, but everybody else in that bullpen was older than him. They had Chad Durbin, who was a disaster as well. And this is a bullpen
the mailman.
Full of young kids.
He delivered, but the mailman delivered that year too. He had an excellent year.
Frank Herman.
The guy who Peter King used to love to write about. Peter King wrote more about Frank Herman. On the Cleveland Guardians that he did about the Browns during
the Harvard Heater, man. The Harvard Heater.
No, wasn't he Dartmouth? He was Dartmouth.
I thought Frank Herman went to Harvard. Didn't he go to Harvard?
I thought he was
Princeton.
Dartmouth.
He was Harvard.
Oh, he was Harvard.
The Harvard Heater. Come on.
Okay.
How do you forget the Harvard Heater?
All right,
so that concludes our weird experiment of comparing the 2011 Indians, the 2024 Guardians. We definitely both agree.
Oh, that's why he loved them. He's from Montclair, New Jersey. That's where he's from. So I'm sure he knew that family. That's why. But I just remember that coming up in like every one of his articles.
Definitely don't know how this year is going to turn out. Can't sit here and say for sure that we know this is the good times they're going to last, but enjoy the good times while they're happening. And we both agree this team's got a little more staying power than 2011. 100%. It's just a younger roster without a bunch of fodder. Like I know you're still trying to get questions on guys, and you got a Florio hanging around, but it's a young roster. There's volatility in that, but I think there's still more upside here. That 2011 team had a lot of weird guys hanging around that just weren't doing well and were on their way out. So this team has a little more staying power. All right, we're gonna talk some prospects because now we're saying this team is for real. Maybe not 33-17 for real, but pretty for real. We'll talk about who we think is an actual trade candidate so far and who isn't. So stick around for that.
But first, let's talk about the good people over at FanDuel. You know them. They're America's #1 sportsbook. They are the official sponsors of, I feel like, every single sports league. We've talked about the NBA. We've talked about them with Major League Baseball. And what isn't there to love, especially if you're a new customer? Because right now, $150. Normally, it's only, I feel like $100 in bonus bets. 150 feels high. I feel like it's normally you get $100 back, but $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's right. You bet $5, you make $150 plus whatever you made on the bet win. So that's $150 to spend on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com to look at the odds every day.
Weekend series coming up in LA for the Guardians, 9:38 on Saturday and Friday, and 4 o'clock start on Sunday. You can check out all those games on your SiriusXM app. Just search Guardians. I don't know why I went in reverse order there. All right, trade value. Let's have some fun here. So people are not going to want to hear this discussion. I have a hard time. It's only May 23rd. Like, a lot can change in 2 months, right? So what we're saying now might not necessarily hold up in 2 months because, teams get more scouts out towards the end of the month and they're checking their reports to make sure they're checking their list twice, right? Trying to find out which prospects are naughty or nice. I don't know why I'm saying that. But
Scouting Man is coming to town.
Scouting Man will be coming to town. They're already out, but they'll be out in heavy force come July. So a lot of this can change in a couple months. And also, it just takes one team to be interested in one of your prospects to make things work out. Look at Cleveland, right? They were interested in Corey Kluber, and that worked out for them. There's David Fry. They're interested in David Fry. It worked out for them. All it takes is one team saying, we believe in this guy, and maybe he works out, maybe he doesn't. But if there's a team interested in a guy and you want to make a deal, all it takes is one. But my overall summation right now of this farm system is a lot of guys you're just not ready to trade, guys you really shouldn't trade, and a bunch of guys who just don't have value. Like, we agree, Rafi Velasquez, obviously, you're not trading him at this point, right? Jason Chourio, I don't know. Like, Jason Churio's at low A, so I kind of question how much value he has. I know he's got name value because of his brother a little bit, but teams are probably going to strip that away, obviously, if they're rational. And it's low A, so it's hard to evaluate. And then again, you're evaluating on tools as it is. So Churio's an interesting case. Like, obviously, you're not trading Manzardo. You're most likely not trading Chase DeLauder unless they decide they're just scared to death of the foot injury, and if someone wants him, they can cash in on him. But I really doubt it. Juan Brito is an interesting one. Like, he's on fire lately.
He is, but just like that's the reason they got him and the reason he wasn't valued as much by Colorado is like he's second base or bust.
Well, it's fine if you draft Travis Bazzana. You have room to move Juan Brito because
I know
your second baseman is Bazzana and your shortstop's Jimenez.
There's less value there in the profile too. It's just
Guardians liked him. Maybe there's another team out there that really likes him. I don't know, but your guys at the top are kind of either, like you said, like, you're not trading Manzardo at this point. You're probably not trading DeLauder, and you're not trading Ralphie. Those are your top three hitters. So there goes your like biggest chips of a trade, right? Churio's kind of on the fence there. Like, I wouldn't be against it, but it's hard to know how much value he truly has. And on the pitching side of things, like, you really don't have anybody. Let's be honest. There's nobody on the pitching side of things you can really trade right now. Like, who do you have that's a prospect to trade? Like, Joey Cantillo's hurt. So, and you kind of need him when he comes back. Like, you kind of need that guy, unless you can really parlay that into more. Like, the guy who probably has the most trade value among pitchers in the minors is Andrew Walters, and I don't think you're dealing him. Is there anybody like Ryan Webb, Doug Nikhazy, Tommy Mace have all been better this year, but they're probably like 5-6 starters. They're like back end guys who don't have a lot of value. So
no, I agree, and it's like people might, we see in the comments. I think most people know like Tugboat isn't pitching for the team this year, but people every show someone or one or two people.
I'll tell you how he looks Saturday. I'll be at Lake County.
He's moving up from A-ball. He missed a lot of bats in community college, but like he's also not a trade piece. Like he is a third, fourth piece in a deal. So it's like it's this unfortunate situation where since that great class where you had like Tanner and Logan Allen kind of break out, and I know they're different draft classes, but there weren't a lot of great breakouts last year in the system. There were a lot of regressions, a lot of injuries, but there weren't a lot of great breakouts. And this year, maybe the big breakout looked like potentially Angel Martinez, who was one of the big regressions from a year ago. And, then he got hurt. But he may play. But it's just hard. I think Chourio to me is the most palatable piece. And again, because of bloodlines, because of name, because of performance. And then I think in the lower minors, there are people who love Welbin Francisco. Again, these are hard guys, but you have to find the right team. And we do see that. Remember when the Pirates, when the new front office took over, they traded almost entirely for those guys who are far away big names. And a few of them have hit and moved up through the system for them. But you need probably a new GM who is looking at a bit of a rebuild, who is going to swing and be willing to take more of those lotto ticket types. And it is a low percentage turnout, but the pain of it is Junior Caminero. Like there are the ones who work, Fernando Tatis Jr., but most of them are.
That was nullified trace from the start, but that's a whole different story.
But those guys were not big name prospects. They were just, they were solid lotto tickets. Sometimes those work out, and sometimes it's Adam Abreu.
Yeah. Like Alex Mooney's off to a good start. I don't know how much trade value he has, but he's off to a pretty good start. There's some aggressiveness in the profile there. Yeah, there's just no pitchers. Like I think everyone's looking for pitchers in a trade. If you're Cleveland for years, everybody kept screaming, trade a shortstop. Well, guess what? Nobody wanted Rocchio for what the Guardians were looking for. Nobody wanted Arias for what the Guardians were looking for, or Tyler Freeman. Like they could not move those guys for the pieces they wanted. I guarantee they were up on offers for trades. We didn't even mention George Valera. I don't know that George Valera has a ton of prospect value in terms of trades right now either. Like I think if there's somebody out there who could really raise his stock over the next 2 months, it could be George Valera. But here's the problem: if he goes out in the minors and raises his stock as far as performance goes, and he's healthy, you kind of want that guy on your team instead of trading him, right? Like then you run into a weird decision with that.
He's our version of Florial. Let's be honest. It's like you're almost looking for, hey, if he can recover some value, is there a team that has a slightly distressed pitching prospect? Like that's what we're looking at. Which is
not what the Guardians need right now.
Well, if it's someone close to the big leagues, if it's someone who they feel like that they can do something or get up quickly.
Would you trade George Valera for Cody Morris right now?
No, I don't think Morris is.
Would you trade Florial for Cody Morris?
Yes. Because then I wouldn't have to deal with Florida. But I wonder if Valera, is there a world where Valera and I know there are Jose Tena truthers out there who'll get mad at me, but is there a world where you try to flip a Valera and a Tena for a Ryan Weathers, someone who's a little bit further down, who has some control, but then gives two interesting assets, or maybe Miami's it's Arias instead of Tena. It's maybe there's a world where a team like Florida, who is a team that is you look at that deal. They swung for some. Dylan Head is very far away and hurt, and they took that deal. So it could be something like that.
Someone did tell me that during spring training, the Dodgers were closely following Cleveland, and it sounded like they were interested in Arias. So I don't know if the Dodgers have any pitching depth to really deal from. But
they don't really, but nothing
everyone's
proven.
Hurt. Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be interesting 2 months. If this team sticks around, they definitely are going to need to trade for a starting pitcher, I would assume at this point. Obviously these people are going to say trade for a hitter, but I don't know where that hitter fits in because you're still trying to get answers on, if you get to July and Will Brennan is still kind of this inconsistent and Florial probably is gone by then. I hope to God Bo Naylor has figured it out offensively by then. You're still kind of limited. And then I don't know. You got if Juan Brito's up. I don't know. I could probably count on one hand how many guys you're really legitimately going to flip in terms of value, and it could be Valera. I think Brito's in that conversation. I think Chourio's in that conversation, and I think Welbin Francisco's in that conversation.
And this is where the scouts make their money, right? It's trying to find the guy who you can listen. Kyle Dowdy didn't work out. He went to Texas in the Rule 5 and got to the big leagues, but he was a guy when they acquired him, he added 3 miles an hour to his fastball almost immediately. They saw something they could clean up and fix. And this is where the scouts make their money. You're trying to find a guy who maybe, hey, we can fix this or we can help this and move it around a bit. This is, if they do make one of these kind of lower down the deal trades, which is more than likely it is, this is where you trust your scouts.
Maybe you can find a team out there that really, really thinks that John Kenzie Noel could be a an outfield slugger. Maybe you can find someone to take him off your hands. Hey, Khalil Watson's really rebounded. Maybe they can turn Khalil Watson into something. You guys have all turned out this week to watch our podcast. We definitely appreciate that. It's been a good week. Let's hope the Guardians can keep it going in LA over the weekend.
Yes, it's a weekend. Let's keep it going. Let's get to 9 straight. Thank you all for joining us. Oh, that's the wrong button. Rating and reviewing, downloading. It helps so much. Thank you for joining us each and every single day. Remember to go back and watch some old episodes as well. Thank you all, and go Guardians, go.